the marker allows him to stop at the king. See? The space created by the short marker card automatically stops the riffle at his pre-selected king of clubs. A simple and foolproof way to force a card on a volunteer. Now we know that he forces the king of clubs on the girl, but how does he make it pass through the glass window? Making sure she takes the forced card is the first critical secret. Here's the next. Before the illusion began, the magician obtained an extra king of clubs. One card was placed behind the short marker card. The other was handed to an accomplice, who went off to hide on the other side of the glass window. There's the accomplice, and here's how she hides. The next secret is this container of clear wax. A small ball of this wax acts as an adhesive, allowing the face of this card to stick to the glass. As the volunteer places the card back in the magician's deck, the magician is careful to distract her for a few seconds. This is when the hidden accomplice takes the duplicate card and sticks it to the window with the wax. Then, the magician throws the deck at the exact spot where the card was placed by the accomplice. From this backstage angle, we can see that the card is in place well before the magician throws the deck. From this high angle, we can see the timing of the accomplice and how the magician keeps the volunteer looking at him until the cards hit the glass. The incredible card-through window isn't so incredible when you know the secrets. Now the magician will present another classic illusion that has confounded audiences since it was invented in 1902. To perform it, he'll need the help of his lovely assistants. Here's one now. As always, she's eager to please. And here come two more. They're quite pleasing too. The magician casts a spell over his assistant, who immediately gets ready for action. The other assistants remove a sheet from a low bench, allowing her to take a seat. They raise the sheet as she stretches back and lies straight across the length of the bench. They cover her with the sheet and stand by while the magician continues to cast his spell. Watch. The girl is floating off the table. Higher and higher, she floats into the air. Below, the magician waves his arm to prove there's nothing supporting her. He takes the sheet and she's gone. Disappeared in midair by magic. Now you know why this illusion is a classic. So, how did the magician make his assistant rise up into the air, then vanish without a trace? Here are the secrets. When the assistant enters, she's placed under a spell and takes her position on the bench. Of course, it's not a real spell, and that's not an ordinary bench. Cleverly concealed are flaps of spandex fabric that match the top of the bench. They disguise a secret compartment below. The compartment is big enough to hold the assistant quite comfortably. We see her sit down onto the bench, then the other assistants raise the sheet. As soon as she is hidden from view, the assistant quickly slips into her secret compartment and closes the spandex flaps. From above, we can see how swiftly she gets into her concealed position. But if she's hidden inside the bench, how does it appear that she's still on top, covered by the sheet? Hidden behind the table is a fine wire body form that's bent into the shape of the reclining girl. The wire form takes the place of the assistant and is impossible to detect when covered by the sheet. Very thin black wires are attached at the head of the form and the feet. They run up to a pulley system concealed in the rafters and down to another assistant who is hidden off stage. Nice. When the sheet is raised, the assistant climbs into the bench and the offstage girl manipulates the rope. This raises the body form, which takes the place of the assistant who's supposed to be lying on the bench. With the sheet on top, no one is any the wiser. When the magician appears to be making the assistant rise, it's actually the body form under the sheet, being pulled up by the thin black wires. Even from this backstage angle, the wires are difficult to see. From above, we can see how the pulleys are raised, taking the form up with them. But with the body form suspended by wires, how does the magician make it disappear when he removes the sheet? Here's another secret. When the sheet is pulled, the form is lifted higher into the air. The careful timing of lighting and camera movement hides the body form from view. From this angle, we see it go. Making a girl levitate and vanish is simple, now that you know the secrets.
Coming up next, the magician creates a bevy of beauties from thin air. And then, he attempts to break a death-defying world record without ending up in a watery grave. You won't believe how it's done.
Next, the magician has an illusion for us involving this empty pedestal. As we can see, there's nothing behind, above, or below. For some reason, these tricks are always more interesting when the female assistants are around. Well, we'll have to make do with what we have here, unless the magician can help out with a little magic. He invites his male assistants to raise a large sheet on top of the pedestal. Let's see what happens. A few of those famous magical gestures, and he commands the sheet to be lowered. Presto! That's what we were waiting for, a beautiful girl from head to toe. That's one sure way to brighten up a warehouse. The sheet goes back up. Maybe he's trying for number 2. We're about to find out if he has the magic touch. He does. This trick is a real crowd pleaser. And here's a lingering shot of the girl, just to prove she's real. If she weren't, could he do this? He's good, but he's not that good. The sheet goes back up. Now let's see if the third time is the charm. Some more magical gestures are in order. And there she is. The third time is the charm. And the charming. This is what happens when you put women on a pedestal. The results are amazing. So how did the magician conjure 3 beautiful women from thin air and put them on a pedestal? The secret is that he gets by with a lot of help from his friends. Beneath the stage, a small army of men are operating some complex equipment to pull off this elaborate trick. The second the sheet is raised, the backstage team goes into action. This man-powered elevator sends the woman up through a shaft to the top of the pedestal. But the pedestal appears to be very narrow. It contains yet another secret. A concealed stagehand releases a mechanism which expands the pedestal and allows the girls to squeeze through. Check out that profile. From the front, the pedestal appears circular, but from the side, you can see how it expands to 3 times its width. Once the pedestal is expanded, the girls are propelled through the shaft and the pedestal. They ride up, sideways to the sheet and audience. Once on top, they each turn to face the audience and flip down the secret panel with their feet, just seconds before the sheet is lowered. As the first girl is being lifted off of the pedestal, beneath the stage, the second girl is stepping into the cramped elevator. When the sheet is once again raised, the assistant stands up and gets ready for her quick ride. 2 burly stagehands grab hold of a steel cable and lie backward onto the floor. The cable runs through a pulley system, which lifts the elevator and sends the girl up through the shaft. Using her hands, she flips open a secret panel on top of the pedestal and climbs out. She quickly stands and gets ready for her appearance, just in time. The same process is repeated for the final assistant. what some guys won't go through just to get the girls. The magician will now show us a test of the powers of his mind. Keep an eye on the ordinary spoon in his hand. Watch as he concentrates his thoughts on the spoon. Like magic, it begins to melt, bending before our eyes. And there it is, one freshly bent spoon using no tools and no camera tricks. Just the power of mind over matter. Or is it? So did the magician use the power of his mind to cause the spoon to bend? Then prove to us that it's bent for good? Not on your life. Here are the secrets. First of all, the stem of the spoon isn't attached to the bowl. When the magician shows us the solid spoon in his hand, he's really only showing us the bowl of this already bent spoon, concealing the stem behind his fingers. He then takes a loose stem and holds it up next to the bowl, hiding the joint with his fingertips. It appears he has one solid spoon, but here we see that the real stem of the spoon is already bent down and hidden from view. He slowly releases his grip on the joint, causing the loose stem to slip down, appearing to bend. When he takes the spoon from his fingers to show off the bend, he's careful to keep the loose stem hidden inside his left hand and draws our attention to the bent spoon in his right. But we won't let him bend the truth again, now that we know his secret. The magician will now attempt to cheat death with a dramatic test of his superhuman endurance. This is the same experiment that was featured on a live nationwide television broadcast by a street magician who's known for hanging upside down, living underground, and pretending to freeze himself in a giant block of ice. The magician shows the clock and lovely timekeeper who will keep track of his minutes underwater in this giant glass tank. As always, do not attempt this or any of the magician's dangerous illusions or escapes. He is a highly trained professional with a team of safety experts standing by. He has been training with Navy SEALs for the past 6 months to pull off this feat. He's going to attempt to set a new world's record for holding his breath underwater. To do so, he's learned to expand his lung capacity and slow his breathing by putting himself into a state of suspended animation. This trance-like condition will allow him to stay underwater without gasping for air. He makes his way to stairs that lead to a platform that surrounds the top of the tank. At the ready are 2 more assistants. They will closely monitor his safety and alert the paramedics if anything goes wrong. He takes a few deep breaths and concentrates on slowing his heart and expanding his lungs. Then plunges into the tank. Hold your breath with him and see how long you can last. He will not come up for air until time is up. He's attached his feet to weights that secure him to the bottom of the tank until he slips into his hyper trance. We'll see how long he can stay in this position. Are you still holding your breath? Note that the tank is definitely filled with water, and he's not hiding behind a phony glass wall. The risk of drowning is very real. Nearly a minute has gone by. How many of you have had to take a breath by now? The magician is slowly slipping into his state of relaxed consciousness. That's a minute 30 seconds. Let's jump ahead 1 minute.